Out of all the vampires on screen, ranging from the ones that sparkle to the ones you'd never ever want to go near, there's one kind of vampire, one group that stands out as the scariest vampires in modern movie history. I can confidently say I am a fan of all creatures of the night. Halloween is literally my favorite night of the year. One, I have an excuse to look like a fool and go out at night and beat on people dressed as clowns who pull out knives and like to stalk kids and women. People exist like that. Remember when Pennywise and the It movie came out and we had a whole bunch of people doing that? Listen, I will be on the front lines fighting those people because no one knows I'm the scariest thing to come out at night at Halloween. Now, my favorite creatures have always been vampires and werewolves. Besides kaiju, this is it. But let's be honest here. Vampires have gotten a bad rep recently. They went from terrifying creatures of the night, badass, something you would be intimidated by to your core, to an icon for teenage girls everywhere. What is this? How far have we fallen? We went from the days of Dracula, then Blade, the action, right? Dracula, Blade, Underworld, now this? We're seeing a resurgence with stuff like Nosferatu, I understand it, but listen, we need to go back to the old ways now. What I'm about to say in this video will rub some people the wrong way because the most powerful vampire is not the scariest. Okay, there are a lot of strong vampires out there, but they're not as scary. For example, take Hope from Legacies, the daughter of Niklaus Michelson. She's a tri-hybrid. She's a vampire who has magic abilities. She can turn into a werewolf. She has all the strengths of like 3-4 different species, but none of the weaknesses. She's really powerful, but she's like not scary. I'm not gonna be ever scared of her. She's nowhere near as scary as her father. A real scary girl vampire is Ellie from Let the Right One In. See, this is the difference I'm talking about here. Ellie doesn't give a shit. She's brutal. If you want to know, if you want evidence of this, watch the pool scene. Let the Right One In is goated, but this might be one of the best scenes ever in fiction. This kid's about to get drowned by these bullies, and she annihilates them all, and it's one of the best directed scenes ever. But this is a real vampire. That's what I'm talking about. So, I'm going to be talking about a specific kind of vampire, not a specific character. Specific characters will be mentioned in this, but this is about the kind of vampires that are scary in movie history, okay? So, who are the scariest vampires? I will probably miss out a lot of people's favorites. Who knows? Some of you will be saying, what about him? What about this guy? What about these creatures in the comments? I'm going to try to get to them all. But here are some honorable mentions, okay? The vampires from Salem's Lot. All right? Demonic. Straight up demonic. I like it when a vampire is bald, has yellow eyes. This is what a creature who comes out at night, gets burned by the sun, and sucks people's blood should look like this. Not someone who's beautiful. Okay? The creatures in this are just creepy. They're just a creepy breed of vampires. They're sadistic, they're vindictive. When someone turns into a vampire, they're not like, oh, struggling between humanity and vampire. No, they're straight up outside your window. Hello. That's what they're doing. All right? And screw that garbage remake of Salem's Lot. Hollywood needs to stop remaking shit. Just stop it. You fail every time. I'm gonna make a whole video about what they did to The Crow. Yeah. Now, I know I just roasted it, but Vampire Diaries. Okay, listen, hear me out. Season 1, vampires were literally horror villains. Before Damon simped for Elena and betrayed his brother, he's a horror villain. He's speeding around. These vampires are really strong too. They're some of the strongest in fiction. They're ripping people's heads off clean. He's biting onto people. When he lacked humanity, when these vampires lack humanity, they're at their scariest in Vampire Diaries. I'm telling you, man, one of the worst pieces of vampire fiction have some goated moments. Vampires in I Am Legend. These are some of the more zombie-like vampires, but they're not going to be the only zombie-like vampires we cover, okay? The reason why they're not higher on the list is because I personally do not find CGI vampires that scary. I used to when I was a kid. I'll tell you what was the real scary version of them, is when Ridley Scott originally was supposed to do I Am Legend like back in the 90s or whatever. He was supposed to adapt the book. And their idea, their concepts for the prosthetics for vampires, this is creepy. This is what you call a scary vampire. We got the mystical vampires, Bram Stoker, Dracula. They can shapeshift, screw with your dreams, turn into fog. They're like gods, essentially. They're not my favorite kind of vampire, but I really, really enjoy them. And Listen, Bram Stoker's Dracula, who doesn't love that kind of vampire? These vampires, we need vampires who are like this. Not, oh, I fall in love with Elena and we're gonna have a love triangle. No, we want someone who's about to dominate everything in his path. Dusk Till Dawn. The reason they're not the scariest to me is because, one, I find this movie really fun and funny, but Quentin Tarantino's character, pre-vamp turn, is scarier than any vampire. This dude is contemplating whether or not he wants to molest the main characters, brutally molest them. He's a predator in this film. And he's the wrong person to turn into a vampire. This is the last person you want with vampire powers, okay? Twilight. Okay, hear me out. The Volturi from Twilight are very powerful. They're creepy as hell. They have dead eyes. They're soulless, and each of them have powers. Dakota Fanning can like screw with your mind and cause you the most pain you've ever seen in your life. One of them has fog that can make you numb. It can paralyze you like a toxin. And then you got Aro, played by my boy Lucian from Underworld, who, yeah, that's literally his personality. These vampires are sick in the head. I have to mention them. And the Twilight lore is very weird because Renesmee is a CGI baby that's creepy itself. She doesn't even look real. But she is like the victim of grooming. Jacob's a groomer. And I know this has been this child predator joke about Jacob has been said millions of times, but I want to reiterate something. People still defend this as, no, he didn't love her. He just imprinted on her when she was a child and hung out with her for every single day of her life until she grew old enough for him to bang. That is what you call a groomer. If any man in real life was caught doing this, you'd all cry cancel. Cancel culture would be in full effect. I want you to cancel this character out of existence. Priest. This is what I call a real vampire, alright? These are more xenomorph-like than Twilight or vampires. These are animals. They come out at night and eat you. They don't care. They'll destroy you. They'll operate in hives and shit too. Like, this is a monster. I want more vampires like this. And then we got Night Flyer. I like it when vampires just look monstrous. I have a bias. I like it when they look like creatures and not beautiful humans, because that's realistically what a blood-sucking creature of the night and death would do. The scariest. Who's the scariest vampire? Let's nail it down, okay? So there's a film called Daybreakers where 95% of the population is all vampires now and humans are going extinct. And we're low on blood supply. So normal vampires look like this, but when they lack blood for a long time, when they're deficient of blood, they turn into this. Subsiders, zombified vampires who will travel in the subways. They have wings and shit too, so they'll be hanging out in the subways trying to feed on carcasses left and right, but then one of them will come up every once in a while to the service and break into a house and try to kill everything in its path. There's a scene where that almost happens in Daybreakers and it's absolutely horrifying. This guy to the left comes into this dude's house randomly. He finds a way in and goes crazy in berserk. It's insane. Now, the elder vampires from Underworld. There's a distinct difference here between the elder vampires in Underworld and normal vampires in Underworld. See, normal vampires in Underworld are like Celine. Celine ain't scaring me ever. If she's chasing after me, I'm going towards her. I'm not running away from her. If she's coming at me with like guns or whatever, I'm gonna be like, and she's gonna be like, what the hell? She'd fear me. I would never fear her. But these guys don't care. Victor, the leader, is a kind of dude who can break a dude's head against the wall just for disagreeing with him. He's the kind of dude who burns his daughter alive for making out with the werewolf. He's ruthless. Lycans will charge towards other vampires and they'll back off. Victor, he'll be like, come here, and start stabbing it. That is who Victor is. And then you got the way he looks when he's just awoken. He barely has any blood in him, and he looks like this, and he's shouting orders at people saying, you must be punished. I ain't trying to be in the same room with this guy ever. But that brings us to Marcus, the major elder vampire, the first vampire, right? Kind of a hybrid. When he looks normal, he's fine. But when he turns into his bat form, I don't want to be anywhere near him. He cuts people's arms off first. Then he'll cut their heads off. He'll use his wings to stab into people. If I was locked in a forest with a vampire, he's the last kind of vampire I would ever want chasing me. He can fly, he can do everything. I ain't trying to ever be near Marcus, alright? He's ruthless. And then you got the vampires who are known as angels in Midnight Mass. Basically, Midnight Mass is an isolated town in the middle of nowhere. A priest comes and starts performing these crazy miracles for people. And people are like, how is he doing this? We must be blessed by God or angels. And then he introduces the main angel who's behind it all. It happens to be a vampiric entity who has been silently manipulating events so that all these people start drinking blood, his blood, and turning into vampires. He'll go from animalistic, attacking you in a cave, to wearing a hat and a trench coat and just walking around, stalking people. And then when you see his face, he'll jump at you and start biting you. Midnight Mass, the guy who made Haunting of Hill House, this dude's a master of horror. Watch the show. This vampire's creepy. It's basically like Marcus Corvinus, except not as powerful, I'd say, but without humanity. It's just there. Soulless eyes. It doesn't speak. That's what's the most terrifying about it. Nosferatu. These kind of vampires, they're mystical. I call them the devil breed. The devil made him. Created his virus. Alright? Now, here's the thing about Nosferatu. In the movie, as I saw more and more of him, the aura started to deplete from me. He's not that scary to me. But he gets his scariest when he starts possessing Lily Rose Depp and messing with her mind. That's the thing about him. Not only does this dude kill kids in the movie, but he does this to her when she starts getting possessed. Her performance makes him scarier as a vampire. These are the scary kind of vampires who are more demonic in nature. And he, again, like Jacob, he's a child predator. Her parents died, so she called out to the dark to fill the void of her loneliness. And he answered, and he waited for her to be of age so he could find her and then bang her. These I don't know, I think this movie was an allegory for like sexual assault or like child predator shit, but the groomers are the creepy ones. That's just simply it. Top 3. All right. Nomax, Reaper strain of vampires in Blade 2. Again, more zombified in nature. They look really weird and they feed on vampires. Nomax's goal is to kill vampires, right? He hates them. But the problem is, once his Reaper strain starts killing off all the vampires, who's left to feed on? Humans. That's what makes them scary. You don't want creatures like this roaming around and hunting people at night. Anyone who has a mouth that opens up like that, I'm nuking the entire place from orbit. These creatures, not only are they powerful enough, like Nomak is able to beat the crap out of Blade, but they look like this. And they don't care who they feed on at one point. They're just raging animals. Strain. Very similar to Nomak's vampiric breed. They're parasitic though. They come from like worms, I think. When a worm enters their bloodstream, I think that's what causes like this parasitic virus. And they do this with their mouths. They have like tongues that come out. Oh, it's weird. Basically, they're derived from ancient beings who are basically fragments of a fallen angel. That's what we're dealing with here. And then that's how the virus started. So a fallen angel created these fragmented mystic beings. And these mystic beings caused a virus. And this is what we get. Vampires who are parasitic in their transformation, they open their mouths and their tongues come out and lash at you. This is disgusting. I never want to be anywhere near these beings. Again, another kind of creature, if I ever found them in a city, I'd nuke them from orbit. I'd nuke that entire city from orbit. Yes, a bunch of people are going to die, but it has to be done if they're going to die. They're not the scariest vampires. The scariest vampires are reserved for one film. Imagine if humanity and vampires were at war. And then humanity won, so these aren't the strongest vampires or the smartest. But humanity won and drove the vampires out. And then over time, we forgot they even existed. The vampires made a good job of making us forget that they existed. And the vampires' fled into the coldest areas of the world, where the sun couldn't reach them because they went into the stormy Arctic areas. And they waited for one of these towns nearby that also goes dark when winter storms come through. And they come out at night. 30 days of night. These are the scariest vampires I've ever seen. This is horror. They'll kill you in the most brutal ways possible. Okay? First of all, they look the way they do. Second of all, they have a guttural tribal language. They're like a tribe of people that don't really speak English. They're like, that's how they speak. And they will kill children, women, anything that gets in their way. And this is perfectly seen when Marlowe, the leader of them, comes to a woman, and the woman's like, "No, God, please. Oh, God." And he looks up to the sky, plays games with her, looks up to the sky, and he says, "Oh, no, God." And then all of his vampires descend upon this poor chick and rip her into pieces. Look at her, bro. I'd save her. I would try to save her, but I'd get my ass whooped in the process. This is the most malicious kind of vampire you'll ever see in fiction. They are devoid of humanity. They feel nothing. They feel nothing for you. They can only be decapitated or burned by the sun. That's the only way you can kill them. Besides that, they have all the regular powers of a vampire, except for like shape-shifting and teleporting and all that stuff. And they're pure animals. Their teeth make them the scariest, in my opinion, to look at. When normal fangs don't scare me. Shark teeth scare me. They have shark teeth and shark eyes to make them look like they are devoid of a soul. That's the oh my god, man. Whoever designed these creatures and wrote them did it perfectly. They don't look like bats, or they don't have wings. They don't look zombified. They look like normal people. It's the eyes and the fangs. That's what makes them terrifying to look at. And then the fact that they're devoid of humanity and they'll kill anything in their path brutally, by the way, sadistically. It's not just like, oh, they want to feed. No, they hate humanity because of what happened. The humanity drove them out, so they're going to do anything they can in the most destructive way possible. This is the scariest breed of vampire I've ever seen. And it's not close. If you want to know what the scariest demon of all time is, watch this video here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a mission to take over Hollywood. If you want to suggest video topics to me, or talk about your favorite movie theories with like-minded individuals in a community geared towards changing storytelling itself, join the free Discord now. The link is in the description below and probably in the comment section too. Join the Discord now. We're taking over Hollywood one Coke line at a time. See you on the other side.